Hey, what's going on, everybody? Alex Van Aken here from Game Informer. Thanks for tuning in. Got a quick little spotlight for you from the Game Informer show. We've got Wesley on the show this week, and he was the person who wrote our cover story on Skull and Bones. He's got a lot of details about the game, what has happened in the last 5 years of that title. Some would call it development hell. I don't think Ubisoft is calling it that. If you enjoy this video, be sure to go and listen to the full episode over on our new YouTube channel. It's called Game Informer Shows. It's going to be where we keep our live stream archives and full episodes of the Game Informer Show, which I host. You can, of course, listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts as well. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Wes, you had a weird couple weeks, but one of the things that you've been working on in those weird couple of weeks is your first cover story for Game Informer. How does it feel?
Pretty good. My first cover story, I was not employed by Game Informer while writing it. That's a fun little...
You were paid, though.
I was paid. I was paid very generously, and I'm very thankful for that. Yeah, that is very important to make clear.
But not you. This is, your brief break from Game Informer.
I haven't looked at the digital magazine, but I wonder if I'm under the staff list. That'd be pretty funny if I was.
Stressing vacation of all time.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I'd already done all the work except actually write it, which is still a lot of work. And after the layoffs happened, Reiner was like, look, you don't have to do it at all. No pressure at all. But if you do want to do it, we can pay you. And I was like, yeah, I do want to do it because I had put a lot of work into this, and it's a game I'm excited about, and it'd be cool to have a cover story, even if I was no longer going to be with Game Informer. Worked out for sure. Weirdly in a great way, because now I'm back, and this is just my first of hopefully many cover stories in the future. But yeah, Skull and Bones. It's a game that was announced in 2017, and it was probably the worst sounding pirate game ever. A 5v5.
What, is it fair to say it was in development hell?
I would say so. They would probably not say so. I asked them a lot of my interviews were about that 5-year gap, because for basically 5 years we didn't see anything about this game. And it was pretty much to them, and you can read more about this in the cover story, they were just saying it's a new IP, it's an open world new IP, and it just takes a lot of time to develop it. But there's been some reporting from places like Kotaku that show a different story, which is that this game's been through possibly many different iterations. Maybe it started off as a Black Flag multiplayer spin-off before becoming its own IP. If you've paid attention to the game, you know it was a 5v5 arena multiplayer battler about piracy.
A lot of words.
Yeah.
Not keywords.
Not a lot of good ones, though. At least not what I personally want when I think of pirates. It's not a MOBA adjacent game. But that's not what this is anymore. Now it is, I called it in the story, the Ubisoftification of the golden age of piracy, which is, this is a Ubisoft game. If you don't like Ubisoft games, you might not necessarily vibe with this, but I do. I love Assassin's Creed and the Far Cry series for what they are, and that is just going around, picking up missions, completing them, crafting, getting resources to become stronger so that the next mission you can do it, and then you just keep going from there. And that's really what Skull and Bones is about. You start as a pirate outcast on the infamy ranking, which is your progression. And your ultimate goal is to reach the top of that tier list, board, whatever you want to call it, and you'll have the title of Pirate Kingpin. Still takes place almost exclusively on the water. This is still focused on naval combat. You're not going to be doing what Black Flag did, which is run around an island and fight soldiers and that kind of stuff with swords. There's some stuff that happens on land, but if you're looking for a third-person pirate action game, this isn't it. That said, I came away from this cover story very excited about what this game is, and I think a lot of people will vibe more with it once you get past the kind of shock value of it. It's not my dream pirate game, which is like a third-person action pirate game, but this is.
What do you mean by the shock value of it?
Yeah, it's just so if you like Black Flag, you probably really love Black Flag. A lot of people, that's one of their favorite Assassin's Creeds for good reason. It's fantastic.
It's probably mine.
Yeah.
It's up there for me too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, if you found out the studio, like Ubisoft, was making a pirate game, you'd probably be like, oh, they're going to make Black Flag without the Assassin's Creed stuff. And that's not at all what this is. And for me, back in 2017, I was really bummed about it. And over these 5 years, not knowing what this game was, I continued to be bummed about it. But after, looking at the game and researching it and talking to the developers about it, I think they're going to do something pretty fun. Still not like the pirate game I would think they'd make, but what they are making is doing some interesting things, and it sounds like they have a pretty good grasp on the naval combat game that they're making.
So I think this is going to draw a lot of, or already has draw a lot of similarities or comparisons to Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves, I would say, more of a simulation, a light simulation. You're dealing with the wind direction. Each piece of the ship is manually controlled, right, to make the ship go. And it's all a couple of moving pieces instead of just hold forward on an analog stick to drive a ship. Is that sort of what Skull and Bones is doing, or is it, would you say it leans more on the arcadey side of that spectrum or more on the sim side of that spectrum?
Yeah, so I would probably lean towards the more arcadey side. Right before I did this cover story, I saw a tweet talking about Skull and Bones, and I wish I knew who it was. It was just a random viral tweet that said Sea of Thieves is all about tools, not rules. And what they talked about was that basically everyone who plays Sea of Thieves has access to the same everything. You have this access to the same ship, the same weapons. Like, there's nothing you can do to make your character more powerful than another player. Like, it comes down to what you can do with what you have. And Skull and Bones is very different in that it's more traditional. Like, it's about starting on a small ship, weak armor, your weapons aren't that great, you don't have access to much, and then you kind of just build up from there. And as your infamy rises, which is basically your XP that you earn, you get access to more blueprints for better ships. You get stronger armor. Maybe your ship is, instead of just wood, it has like terracotta or metal on it. Instead of just cannons, now you've got mortars on it, or Greek fire or something like that. And so as you progress, your ship is getting stronger and stronger, and presumably you should go after bigger fishes in the ocean. And they have, so you get infamy for everything you do, and if you fail at something, you lose infamy, which can affect your ranking, kind of like in Overwatch, how you can slide back and forth through different tiers of bronze and stuff. And the game, one of the big questions I had was about griefing. I get really annoyed in Sea of Thieves when people grief me. Like, if they find me and I just keep respawning and they just kill me over and over, it's really annoying. And I was like, what's going to stop players who have reached the top of this Skull and Bones leaderboard from just going after small guys? And the way they're doing that is that you're just going to lose infamy. You're going to lose a healthy amount of infamy. So the game's going to actively discourage you from picking on small people or small boats, ships and whatnot. So ideally, if everything goes according to their plan, you will progress as a pirate in the world. You'll have better ships, better weapons, and as a result, you're going to go after bigger catches or treasures. You're going to go after bigger ships, bigger forts, bigger villages, that kind of thing.
Marcus, have any questions on Skull and Bones?
Yeah, I read the cover story, and it's fantastic, and I'm excited for people to check it out. One thing that stood out to me was the part about getting to amass sort of a collection of boats. Like, you start out with like your little dinghy, little boat, and then along, as you progress, you can get like big like gunships and stuff. Are you storing these boats anywhere manually, or can you just kind of like video game style just swap between them, like summon them, or can you operate more than one at once?
So I didn't get to see it like in game, but I would bet my life like 99% that it's going to be video gamey, because you're going to have a bunch of different ships. There's 3 types of ships. There's firepower, navigation, and cargo. And firepower, as the name suggests, is all about taking down enemy ships, but it's harder to maneuver and there's not as much cargo space, so you can't carry as much loot. Cargo ships, you can carry a ton of loot, but they're hard to maneuver and you don't want to get into battle with them as a result, because it's easy to take you down. And then navigation ships are fast and speedy, but they're not very strong. And so that's how they're attempting to stop you from just sticking to one ship, is your different missions. You might have an escort mission, or you might have a mission where you got to go take down a fort. And so you're going to be using all these different ships. And when you're at the outpost, or dens as they call them, that's where you'll see a ship like at the dock. And I think you're just going to like go into a menu and pick your ship. That's one of the few spots they said there's a loading screen. So I don't think you're going to see your armada of like 20 ships stored somewhere, but I wasn't able to like actually view that myself. So who knows? But everything they've told me would say and suggest otherwise.
Okay. And also it might be worth maybe touching on a little bit the narrative or whatever it is. I know it sounded like this is not a narrative focused game. I think they've been pretty clear about that even when they didn't know what the game was years ago.
Yeah.
But it sounded like it reminded me of Titanfall 1 a little bit. reading your cover story of like how they were approaching like it's a multiplayer game and we've weaved in the narrative in that framework. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's you've heard developers talk about this kind of narrative before, which is like you create your own story, or your story is the narrative, like your rise to the top. So yeah, there's not
Emergent
like
stories.
Exactly, yeah. Water cooler stories and whatnot. Like this isn't going to be, and they specifically said you're not going to like go through missions and then have a big climactic finale and roll credits and the game's over. It's very much like your story as your rise from outcast to kingpin. But they did say there's some lore bits to find, I presume, like collectibles. There's treasure maps to find. There's pirate VIPs. I couldn't get them to name drop any, but I did ask if there's going to be like a graybeard in place of a Blackbeard, and they said no. So I'm hopeful that there's going to be some like actual historical figures, which Ubisoft is pretty good about. And then you'll kind of learn about their backstories and whatnot. But yeah, this isn't going to be a traditional narrative experience by any means.
Have they said anything about what happens if your ship is destroyed? Is it like on cooldown for a little while and you have to use another kind of ship, or do you just respawn and
Is there permadeath for your ships?
I know you lose infamy, yeah.
Yeah, so there's no permadeath or anything like that. When you die, you will keep most of your loot, which I thought was interesting, but a little bit of it will remain behind for your enemies to get. You can also, I think their goal, and they've expressed this to me, is that, you respawn, you get back in your ship, and you go get the loot that was dropped, or you take down the ship that just killed you so that you can get the loot. Yeah, but there's no like super harsh penalties in that regard. And you mentioned infamy. So you know how in Overwatch you can drop from gold to silver to bronze if you just keep doing terribly? Mm-hmm. This game has a ton of ranks. There's like Outcast, Corsair, Kingpin, for example. And within each rank is like different tiers. So different tiers of Corsair. You can slide back and forth in between that, but you'll never drop below Corsair.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're always theoretically like your line.
Your minimum.
You're always getting higher up in rank, and you don't lose access to any of the things you've unlocked when you drop in tiers and whatnot. Yeah.
Just a matter of reaching that first.
What's the highest rank, and if you achieve it, can you still lose it? Like the system also reminds me, maybe because I don't play Overwatch as much, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel has a similar ranking system. But with theirs, once you get to the tippy top, you're there forever, no matter what. It's kind of the reward, and to let people know that like you've reached diamond rank because of how hard it is to get up there. Do you know if this game has that, or is it like no matter what, you always have to defend your spot?
Yeah, so Kingpin is the highest title infamy rank you can get, and there's tiers within Kingpin, but yeah, once you're a Kingpin, you're never going to drop back down to something lower. And no matter what rank you are, players will be able to see, using the spyglass on top of the ship's crow's nest, they can look at your ship, and they'll see your infamy rank, how much infamy they'd gain for taking you down, how much they'd lose if you beat them, loot of importance on board, and even like what kind of weapons and armor they have. So you get a pretty good layout of every person on the open seas, and there's about 20 other players on every server. So yeah, I think unlike Master Duel, where like if you're the top, like everyone knows it and you're like this big bad who people want to compete against, I think this game will get to a point where like you see a lot of Kingpins. They want everyone to get to that highest rank because that's where the end game kind of stuff happens.
Nice.
I have a quick question. Outside of Infamy, like, are there any other like progression systems? Like, are there like skill trees or anything for your ships?
No skill trees, but there's like, well, no, everything is pretty much tied to Infamy, to be honest. I mean, there's gold to like buy stuff for your ship, like food or more resources. Sure. But as you rank up in Infamy, you unlock new armor types and new weapons. But to like go purchase those and equip it to your ship, you're gonna have to spend like in-world currency. And there's no microtransactions except for cosmetics. Like all you can do is buy cosmetics. So you can't spend real money to get in-game money to boost up to the top real quick.
Nice.
Thanks so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, click the like button, subscribe if you're new around here, and if you'd like to read the cover story yourself, you can go and get a digital subscription through the App Store. It's really easy. All of our magazines are uploaded into our app every month. You actually get it first as the digital subscriber. You don't have to wait for the print edition to ship to your door. It's really great, really convenient, and pretty cheap. It's only $14.99 for the year. So that's gonna do it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.